You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Another shaky hotel/Airbnb internet situation. Here we are for this week's episode of the show before the show from MiLB.com. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Tyler. I got to say I'm disappointed. We talked about this. I thought you were going to come back with a Mario accent. Where is it?
It's still in progress. It's okay. I'm getting all of my influences. I've been in a few different places in Italy now. I'm learning from my ancestral people, and soon maybe I'll bust it out for you.
Yeah, I mean, it came out a little bit when you talked about the food, and what was it called? Prosciutto di Parma.
Prosciutto di Parma.
There you go.
That's Oh, I got tricked. I got bamboozled into saying it. Out eating ballpark food last night. That was incredible, and I ended up dunking on Papa John's on Twitter for some reason, and Mike Piazza was there. It's like a weird dream that I had last night, but it was a real thing, broadcasting baseball in Italy. And then the rain came, and we had a game suspended after the 5th. So we had to finish that up tomorrow. Kind of annoying. Tonight I head over to beautiful Nino Cavalli Stadium, actually leaving here in about an hour for day number 2 of the 2019 Baseball Europe and Africa qualification event for the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. I've got Israel and the Netherlands squad tonight, which looks like maybe the team to beat, the Netherlands. They are really, really good. Roger Bernardina, in case you were wondering, wonder what Roger Bernardina's up to these days. He's here. He's here in Italy playing with the Netherlands, so now you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, because what you did in South Korea was age capped. This does not seem like that. So
correct.
What are the age groups you're dealing with here?
So this is anybody and everybody. This is for those who don't know, baseball and softball go back in the Olympics next year for 2020. By the way, welcome into the Show Before the Show podcast from MiLB.com. My name is Tyler Maughan. His name is Sam Dykstra. If you just found us and this is episode 200 and whatever it is, you probably know our shtick already. Even if it's like your 3rd episode in, we just kind of ramble for a while. So baseball and softball go back in the Olympics next year. They are not fully readmitted sports. They're not they haven't been voted back in by the International Olympic Committee. Each host city gets to select a certain group of sports to bring in for its games. So Tokyo obviously brought back baseball and softball, and there are qualification events starting with this one and going through next, I believe, March, which will determine the 5 additional participants in addition to Japan. Japan already has a slot as the host nation. So it'll be 5 more teams that will be moved into the Olympic Games for 2020. The team that comes out of this round-robin competition this weekend atop this group, they are on to Tokyo. The second place finisher from this week will be on to a final global qualifier event coming up next March. But there is a big-time tournament, kind of a similar sort of tournament to the World Baseball Classic coming up in November called Premier 12, which is a 12-nation tournament that's going to be held in Mexico and Taiwan and Korea with the finals in Japan. There'll be a couple of qualifiers that come out of that. So there's a lot going on the international baseball calendar, which I feel like leads us very well into this week's episode of the show. But yeah, so there are a whole bunch of guys who you have heard of on the rosters for the teams that are competing in this Europe and Africa qualifier this week. And the countries that are here are the Czech Republic, Italy, Israel, the Netherlands, and Spain out of Europe, and then South Africa, the qualifier from the Africa Cup. But there's a lot of dudes. Gavin Cecchini is here, former New York Mets first-round pick. Pat Venditti, the the ambidextrous former Oakland Athletics pitcher, among others. Those two guys were just added to the Italy team a couple of days ago. The Netherlands squad has a whole bunch of guys who have played in the big leagues, have played in the minor leagues, all that kind of stuff. The Czech Republic team, I did a game for them yesterday. Martin Cervenka, who is a member of the Baltimore Orioles system now, the catching prospect from the Czech Republic, he is with that squad. Spain is here. They got a bunch of dudes from the Dominican Republic and Venezuela and elsewhere. Israel is here. There are a lot of American-born players who are on that roster. And who am I missing? I think I'm missing somebody. Oh, it's South Africa. South Africa last night started a very interesting starting pitcher in that he is a guy who can keep a team like that in a short competition like this, and that's Dylan Unsworth, who was with the Angels as of last year, 2018, in AAA in Salt Lake. He made his climb up with the Mariners. He made it to Tacoma in 2017. But Dylan Unsworth got the start last night for South Africa, and that was a team that scored 3 runs in the bottom of the first. South Africa had an early lead over Italy. They were tied 4-4. Then the rains came. That game suspended. We'll resume it tomorrow. But yeah, this is kind of one of those tournaments where you look at rosters and go, oh, I remember that guy. Oh, I remember that guy. Oh, that guy. I wonder what he's been doing. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, especially in this job. I mean, it'd be one thing for like major leaguers to be like, I maybe have heard this guy get a spring training non-roster invite or something like that, or pop up, or like you said with Gavin Cicchini, like a first-round pick. But this is like the minor league version of let's remember some guys. So that's really and it also breaks up any hope I ever had of playing for the Netherlands team, knowing that roster is much more loaded than just, hey, let's bring over some Dutch Americans.
You could play for the Irish team, I bet. They didn't make it here, but I believe they were in the European Championships last week, which determined the 5 teams that moved on to this qualifier. You could probably give that a shot. We could both probably give that a shot. I'm a quarter Irish.
Yeah, we could figure out pitching coach, hitting coach, bench coach, whatever. I could coach first base on that. We could do it.
And despite what you may have read in that athletic story from earlier this year, they're not chasing after Mike Piazza with pitchforks and torches. He was at the game last night and seemed fine. Seemed very happy to be around.
I guess this is one of those times when like stick to your lane, and his lane is baseball instead of soccer. Yeah, that might help things. Yeah, had he shown up at a random soccer event, apparently that soccer team that he had issues with owning, that's the next town over, Reggio Emilia. So that's a short enough distance. Maybe he had like a mustache or something, and they didn't recognize him. I don't know. Talked to Bobby Valentine and got a disguise, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. He got the Marx Brothers disguise classes. But yeah, let's dive in. It is the latest edition of the show before the show from MiLB.com, and the first edition in the post 2019 minor league season world. And we have wrapped things up in the 2019 postseason. We got champions all across the board. The Sacramento River Cats, congrats on a AAA national championship. Sam, postseason wrap-up. What are the biggest storylines to have come out of the minor league baseball postseason?
Yeah, so just to kind of give this a tease in case you guys haven't seen the episode description yet, we're going to get into our second segment with Kelsey Hennigan, who was at the AAA National Championship game in Memphis. We're going to cover that thoroughly with her. She was there. She has more info than either of us could provide. But yes, Sacramento won that game 4-0 going away. We've also got an interview with Columbus Clippers outfielder and Indians prospect Daniel Johnson. But just to run down through the individual league champions now that we're all complete. International League was Columbus. Pacific Coast League was obviously Sacramento. Eastern League was Trenton. Southern League was Jackson. Texas League was Amarillo. And Amarillo won on a grand slam by Taylor Trammell in the 9th inning. Talk about a guy who had kind of a rough season, got traded from the Reds to the Padres, ends it on the absolute highest of notes. His home run was one of my favorite highlights of the year. If you saw it, he was celebrating going around first base. He basically danced into home plate. This swing itself was very sweet. Big game out of him for Taylor Trammell and kind of a do-or-die situation. Visalia breaks its championship drought in the California League. You'll hear us talk to Ben Hill later about championship droughts. Alec Thomas played the hero in that. The deciding game went to extra innings. He had a go-ahead double. Wilmington wins in the Carolina League. South Bend wins in the Midwest League. Lexington in the South Atlantic League. That's a repeat title for Lexington. Not a lot of the same guys still around. Actually, those guys had moved up to Wilmington. So it's interesting to see at the lower levels, the Royals have been really successful in winning championships here the last couple of years. We'll come back to that in a second. Brooklyn won its first outright championship. You've heard us talk to Matthew Allen about that last week. Hillsborough in the Northwest League won its third title in 7 years. If you want to talk about what kind of influence does that have going forward, obviously Hillsborough has done really well. Is the D-back system a really good one right now? Not necessarily. So just because you win at the lower levels doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get great talent going forward. But hey, championships are better than no championships. Johnson City winning in the Appy League, and Idaho Falls rounding out the Royals winnings this year in the Pioneer League. The Royals actually won 4 titles if you include the DSL. Again, Royals kind of in a time of rebuild right now. They'll take whatever success stories they can get. I know Wilmington was really a tough year for some of their top prospects there, Nick Prado, MJ Melendez, but they had really good pitching throughout. Daniel Lynch, Brady Singer started out the year there. Chris Bubich pitched some time in Wilmington. This is a system that is definitely lower heavy right now, and to see them be this successful at those lower levels as teams. Talked to Brewer Hickman, who is a Royals prospect who had a really strong finish to the year. He's actually going to the Arizona Fall League as well, so that'll continue for him. But he talked about how we know we're going to lose players as we go higher up the chain, but just to have this foundation of winning is a good start. And the Royals a couple years ago, we saw what happens when they have a foundation of winning. They carried that to the majors and won a World Series. Is this the group to do that same thing? I don't think so. I don't think there's like an Alex Gordon here or a Salvador Perez. But again, it's better than nothing. And if you develop that winning strategy, that winning attitude, it's a good place to start your career. And for these guys at Wilmington, some of whom won last year at Lexington, now they win in their second years. That's a very promising start. But yeah, I'm going to be coming up with a kind of postseason performers story for Toolshed tomorrow. Taylor Trammell is going to feature in that. Obviously, we don't have like win probability added in the minors really, but I would imagine hitting a go-ahead grand slam in the 9th inning would swing that very well in his way. Alec Thomas, we talked to him a couple weeks ago on the podcast and talked about how his 2019 was kind of a breakout year for him. He wasn't a first-round pick, wasn't necessarily a top talent, even though people thought he was toolsy. To see him do that well for Visalia was really, really neat. So, and again, we'll get into the AAA National Championship and what all that means and how the Giants were able to turn a Sacramento team in the last couple of years that hasn't been successful into a AAA National Champion with Kelsey. But yeah, stories left and right here coming out of the playoffs, and now they're complete, and now we're moving on to a completely different season.
Strike 2 this week, we are out of the minor league regular season and immediately diving into the Arizona Fall League. We talked about this several times throughout the course of the year. We used to have a little bit of a break a couple of weeks, early October, things that get rolling for the AFL. Right into the AFL the day after the close of the AAA season in 2019. Sam, the Arizona Fall League arriving, what are the biggest things to preview and to look out for this season?
Yeah, so speaking of Toolshed, I did one as a preview going into AFL opening day that came on Wednesday, breaking down each of the 6 rosters in the AFL, breaking them down by organizations, which 5 organizations are going to each team, where are the strengths for each team, what are some of the weaknesses, and what are who are some prospects to follow that aren't top 100 names. Although I did sneak in Spencer Howard, the Phillies prospect, because when I wrote the piece, he was not a top 100 prospect. MiLB Pipeline updated their list this week, moved a couple of guys up. Spencer Howard now moved into the top 100. He's now at number 89. But just to kind of give you some of the ones I'll be looking at in terms of strengths, Salt River has tons of shortstops. And we already saw what that means a little bit because Royce Lewis in his first AFL game played third base. There is some question in the community about whether Royce Lewis can be a shortstop going forward. I think the Twins like the progress he has made there. They would love to stick him up the middle, but the AFL is kind of a time to try to try new positions. Maybe he's a center fielder. Maybe he's a third baseman. I don't think he's quite the size of a third baseman. He's certainly athletic enough to stick up the middle, whether that's shortstop, second base, or center field. But hey, give him a look at third base. He only played 4 innings there during the regular season. See how that works out for him, at least right now. But beyond him, Jose Devers, the Marlins prospect, is a shortstop on that Salt River team. He's really good defensively. Tough to kind of move him off there. Vidal Brujan has played shortstop in a pinch in the past. He's probably more of a second baseman, but maybe he gets some shortstop looks as well. That Salt River team trying to figure out who's going to be at the shortstop position every day is going to be really exciting because they are really good options. It is a good problem to have for sure. In terms of Mesa, their outfield defense, this isn't going to be showing up if you're necessarily going to be box score watching, but the top prospect in the entire AFL is Joe Adell. He's on that Mesa roster. He played left field in his AFL debut the other night, but he's also going to be surrounded by really, really good defenders. Brandon Marsh being one of them, a fellow Angels prospect. He's really good. His arm is very good. He can profile in right field potentially. Derek Hill might be one of the best outfielders in terms of defensive ability in the entire minor leagues. He's played both center and right in the Tiger system. Would love to see him get more exposure to center field just because he can cover such great ground with plus speed. And also another Tigers prospect, not ranked, but is known for good defense, is Jose Azocar. Now, you try to put the ball anywhere on the grass, there's a good chance that a lot of that ground is going to be covered. I'm sure the pitching prospects for the Angels, A's, Cubs, Indians, and Tigers are going to be big fans of having those guys behind them. We'll see how it kind of works out. But Joe Adell playing left field, he's probably too athletic for that position. You would want him playing center or right, but given he plays in the Angel system and Mike Trout is still existing, I know he's injured right now, but is the center fielder going forward, Adell's going to have to find a spot in one of the two corners. Expect him to get a decent amount of time in left or right and allow somebody like Azocar or Hill to fill in center. That'll be really neat. With Peoria, the Mariners outfielders, Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez are both there. Rodriguez getting sent to the AFL is fascinating. I know he has some time to make up, due to lost games because he went through an injury this year. But Rodriguez, this is his age 18 season. He was playing in the DSL last year, and they feel comfortable sending him there. Kelenic is finishing up his first full season, climbed 3 levels already. Could be an argument for, hey, we don't want to test him a 4th time. Mariners will say, no, we trust these guys enough to throw them right into the fire. Go against some top quality arms. How can they do against that? I think Kelenic is more likely to succeed just because he's already had a taste of Double A, and we kind of say the AFL is akin to Double A, maybe somewhere between Double A and Triple A. Kelenic already getting that taste. Rodriguez has only played at High A, Modesto, but his skills are definitely good enough. He's got a little bit more power than Kelenic does. Kelenic has a little bit more speed. Mariners fans should be salivating about those guys potentially getting to play together. And one other one I want to point out real quick, Joey Bart, the top Giants prospect, is getting sent to the Fall League to end his first full season. He, like some of these guys, had to deal with some injuries this year, so he's making up for lost at-bats. He did that quite well, going deep twice in his first AFL game on Wednesday. But what I think is going to be most interesting is Joey Bart is considered right now to be a really, really good defensive catcher with, a good bat thrown in. Obviously, homering twice doesn't happen by accident. But Joey Bart, working with that Scottsdale staff, he'll be working with Blue Jays, Braves, Giants, Mets, and Phillies prospects. Spencer Howard, who I already mentioned being one of them. When you are working with a really good defensive catcher and somebody who has experience calling games, he did that his junior year at Georgia Tech, that's going to help the entire staff. Obviously it's not going to be a perfect situation. He's not going to be catching every game for the Scorpions. They've got to get playing time to other catchers as well. There are 2 others, Patrick Mazeika and Ali Sanchez, both of the Mets organization. But I think getting the chance to work with Bart is going to make that whole staff better for sure. It's going to make Bart a better catcher. You talk to catchers all the time about, hey, there's a lot of guys you have to work with in the Fall League. There are a lot of repertoires you have to learn and know how to use. It's only going to strengthen him there. It's only going to strengthen those catchers, or those other pitchers rather. So just look out for that Scottsdale staff. And when we're doing stories on them, I wouldn't be surprised to hear Bart's name come up several times of, hey, this guy was really good to work with and made me a better pitcher. Just one thing to look out for. But it's the Fall League. We're going to be talking about this a lot for the next about 6 weeks. It's already here. They've moved it up, so it started one day after the AAA National Championship. A lot of these guys are going to try to continue the momentum they built up at the end of the season because there is no break. And there's tons of storylines beyond the ones I've already listed here.
And strike three, keeping on the AFL theme, when we get to the end of it, when it's all said and done, who will be your Arizona Fall League most valuable player?
Yeah, so I want to kind of run through just the most recent ones to talk about why I'm going to arrive at my picks. 2010 was Dustin Ackley. 2011 was Nolan Arenado. 2012, Chris McGinnis. 2013, Chris Bryant. 2014, Greg Bird. And the next four are Adam Engel, Gleyber Torres, Ronald Acuna, and Keston Hiura. Now, what you should take away from that is, as you can kind of hear, from basically Chris Bryant on, maybe the exception being Engel, these were really good prospects who were winning the Fall League. This isn't just, hey, Fall League MVP, rather. This isn't just, hey, here's a guy coming up and doing really well and we'll give this award to that person. It's usually the really top talents, Hiura being the one last year. We're seeing what he's capable of in the majors this year. Ronald Acuna ended his breakout year in the AFL, ended up winning MVP awards. Gleyber Torres at the time was a top 5 overall prospect. He took away MVP. Chris Bryant was one of the best hitting prospects we've seen in the last decade. He continued that when he went to the Fall League. So it is top talents coming through here. It is also basically a hitter's league. You're never going to really see a pitcher win this award, mostly because they are limited. There are so many arms that need to get time. It's hitters who take away here. So looking at it through that lens and kind of fitting things into that rubric, I think Joe Adell has to be mentioned as a candidate here. Obviously, he's the top prospect going into this. He's number 5 overall right now. He's somebody who has to make up for time, so he will get those at-bats. He only had 305 this year. He has a little bit of time at AAA Salt Lake, got in 27 games there. Didn't homer, although he did hit 2, and they got taken away by rain, which was unfortunate, but struggled a little bit. So there is that fire to end the year on a higher note. There is the skill set for sure. He's got plus power. He's got a good above-average hit tool. He can certainly run and take his stolen bases and turn singles into doubles and doubles into triples and whatever. So would not be surprised at all, given his experience, given his skill set, to see him really take off here. But one name I want to throw out there as kind of an aside, because at least there was a stretch there where it was a lot of corner infielders and just pure hitters. Seth Beer is headed to the Fall League this year. I know he struggled after his move from the Astros to the D-backs with Double-A Jackson. Turned it a little bit around in the postseason, but he hit 205 with a 615 OPS there at the end. This is his first full season. There is something to be said for fatigue for sure. But Beer is somebody who is a pure hitter. That is his skill set. He's going to hit for average. He is going to hit for power. He just seems like somebody, and as a 23-year-old, as a college performer, has seen top arms before. This isn't going to be anything new to him. Just seems well set up for, if he can kind of put those struggles in the past, carry forward his postseason performance for the Southern League champs. Everything just seems to line up here really well for somebody who could end up hitting, 8-10 home runs, let's say, during the Fall League, and end up with that MVP race, or at the top of that MVP race. Adell can do more things defensively and with speed, but in terms of just pure hitting, that seems to really work well in this MVP history. I think Beer slots himself in really well there. So Adell and Beer are my 2 favorites right now, but we'll have to see how it shakes out, I guess.
Jared Kelenic. Going Jared Kelenic.
I was thinking Jared Kelenic. Yeah,
he's it's not like a real risky pick. Like, he's a total stud who has been great everywhere. But that's my pick. Going Jared Kelenic.
Yeah, no, Jared Kelenic does a lot of the things that Joe Adell does. Certainly less power, but it is there and it is developing. And like I said when I was talking about him and Julio Rodriguez, the speed is certainly there. So he has the ability to perform in multiple ways. And every time we talk about Jared Kelenic, I can hear Mets screaming on the other line, even though that's not how podcasts work. So.
So that'll do it for Three Strikes on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. Sam, tee up our interview for us that Kelsey got at the AAA National Championship game.
Yeah, so the way this works is Kelsey got an interview with Daniel Johnson. You'll hear that at the end of this. I actually caught up with Kelsey from the Memphis airport. She was on her way out. We talked about, the game itself, the AAA National Championship, what the Giants were doing to turn Sacramento into a winning team after some losing years there, and a shift in terms of how they view player development and analytics and winning at the minor league level, and how they marry all those concepts. And then you'll hear at the end of that interview with Daniel Johnson, which happened before the game. So there's no hey, so you guys lost. What does that mean? But yeah, this is all coming up in this package here in our second segment.
And here it is on the Show Before the Show.
Calling in to us from the Memphis airport. I think she found a quiet hallway, but if things go off in the background, that's what you guys know. It's actually putting you guys in the scene here from the AAA National Championship is our own MiLB.com's Kelsey Hennigan. Kelsey, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. There's a Justin Timberlake song that begins with Pharrell singing all the way from Memphis, Tennessee, and I really thought that you were going to play that for me, but I guess it wasn't in the budget.
I think you're overrating how deep my knowledge goes of, what was that, mid-2000s music, maybe?
Maybe. No, I think it was his first album, so it was probably like 2002.
Okay, all right. So that especially doesn't help. Yeah. We're talking about Memphis, and we're not using a Walking in Memphis reference here, which I think is a major upset. But anyway, we'll get to why you are in
came
Memphis.
Up eventually.
Yeah, right. It had to contractually in the first minute. So you are in Memphis to cover the AAA National Championship game. We are talking now on Wednesday morning. The game happened last night, Tuesday, between the Sacramento River Cats and the Columbus Clippers. Spoiler alert, Sacramento won that game 4-0. They become the first team ever to win 3 national championship games in AAA. Just take us through the story. The MVP of that game was Caleb Barragar. You got to be there and watch it through the whole thing. Not the slugfest that we've become accustomed to in AAA this year. In fact, Columbus obviously didn't score any runs. But what stood out to you about last night's game?
Yeah, definitely the lack of home runs, or there was only one home run by Peter Maris late in the game. That was definitely a big surprise. Everyone has been talking this season about how AAA is using the Major League Baseballs, and that's led to a lot more home runs. You would have assumed there'd be a lot of offense, but instead, Caleb Barragar, as you said, the MVP for Sacramento, he actually utilized the balls in his own way. A few months ago, he did a spot start with Sacramento coming up from San Jose, and it did not go well. And he realized that the balls did a lot of, or changed the movement of his curveballs and his sliders, and he realized he had to adapt. So then, fast forward to the end of the year, the end of Richmond's season, he goes back to Arizona. He's hanging out with his girlfriend. He's been told his season's done. And then all of a sudden he gets told, nope, we need you for Sacramento for the playoffs probably. So then the first thing he does is find a AAA or Major League Baseball and starts playing with the grip and starts throwing it and just getting used to it again. So I really think that him being able to utilize the AAA baseball rather than just the hitters taking advantage of it really paid off.
Yeah, and we should read out Barragar's line from last night. He pitched 5 innings, only gave up 2 hits and 1 walk, struck out 5. Looked incredibly effective in terms of hitting his spots as well. You talk about being able to throw the ball. He only needed 68 pitches to get through those 5 innings, threw 39 of them for strikes, threw a lot of first pitch strikes as well. Talking to the guys after the game, I mean, what did it seem like this kind of meant for them, especially for Barragar, a guy, like you said, only made 1 start for the River Cats during the season. Now all of a sudden he's winning them a championship, not only at the PCL level, but at the entire AAA level. What is the atmosphere like after a game like this when it's basically a glorified exhibition, but it still matters. It's still on national television. What was the scene like after the game?
Oh, they were still celebrating. There's still plenty of beer showers and champagne baths. I did hear one coach say that he was getting tired of beer showers, but then I think he was the one who was dumping it on other people throughout the game anyway. So I think they enjoy it. It is a hard-fought win. It is the final game of the year. So at the very least, it's still pretty exciting for them to, like, take that breath that, like, hey, we did it, you know, because you have to win to, like, win the last game of the year. You have to be champions. So it's a pretty big deal for them. They get pretty excited. You know, they're all friends. You know, they spend so much time together throughout the year. So just, I don't know, putting on your goggles and wearing your flip-flops and just ousting your friends with champagne sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take that over just getting on a plane and going home, into the long off season. One thing I want to talk to you about as well is being there for the game in Memphis. We got some questions about this on social media. The game every year is played in a neutral site, mostly for long-term planning. It becomes an industry event. It's much easier to get everybody into place, knowing where the game's going to be. But what was it like in terms of the atmosphere at AutoZone Park in Memphis, and how did they kind of come together to pull it off? Because it seemed like a very well-attended event, and at least watching from television and watching from afar, it seemed like things went off really well. But what was the atmosphere like in the stadium?
The fans were great. They're really into it. I had tweeted about this, but with every ticket, they got a powder blue Memphis hat, and they got free nachos. And, like, I think they had, like, pulled pork or, like, their barbecue nachos. They weren't just, like, chips and nacho cheese. So it was pretty nice. And they also got another free gift, which could have been, like, I can't remember, like another hat or a water bottle or a mystery item or, like, a baseball or something. So, like, they really knew how to entice the fans to come out there. The ballpark looked pretty full. Like I said, there's a lot of powder blue hats out there. I think Sam Mull got the loudest cheer. He had a big section of family out there. I mean, usually at these type of events, the team or the fans just root for whatever league their team is. So in this case, the PCL. But yeah, I mean, I think Francisco Pena, the first baseman for Sacramento, he started the season in Memphis and he played there last year. So he also received a warm welcome. But the fans really get into it. I think that, it's minor league baseball, it's AAA baseball, so you're used to seeing new players most days and the turnover in the roster. So I think that these fans, they just cheer because they're, enjoying baseball. They love it, and it's okay if they don't necessarily know the players as well as if it was their own team.
Yeah, and I think one thing we can look forward to next year, not that we know the teams yet at all, but next year's AAA National Championship will be hosted at Las Vegas. Las Vegas just opening up a new ballpark. That'll be their chance to kind of show that off. And as we've talked about in the past with Ben, big attendance gains there. It'll be really cool to see that event in that new place. One other story I wanted to talk to you about real quick, Kelsey, was you had a sidebar before the game even started, and it looks good now especially, about how Sacramento, we talked about this is a franchise that has won 3 national championships now, but still not relatively new to the Giants, but, affiliates changed a lot. The last couple of years as a Giants affiliate, Sacramento wasn't all that successful, at least in terms of wins and losses. That changed this year, as well as the Giants front office, and Giants are going through a time of change right now. Farhan Zaidi becoming GM, and a little bit more of an analytics-based approach. What can you tell us about how that had an effect on the success of the River Cats in 2019?
Yeah, minor league baseball is kind of like college in the sense that there's so much turnover with players and personnel that it's hard to be consistently good. And if you're bad, it's okay. You're not going to have the same players next year. But yeah, like you said, the River Cats hadn't been doing so well the past couple of years in terms of wins and losses, and then this year they really turned it around with Dave Brundage being the manager that whole time. And he said that a big part of it is Zaidi creating these opportunities for players. He had a lot more call-ups and gave a lot more opportunities to players than he had in the past. I had a stat in that article about how I think 9 players made their major league debut for the Giants this year, and 7 of them had been in the minors for 5 or more years, which, to be honest, I don't know how common that is for other teams. But it sounds like a lot. I think it's pretty cool that all these players who had been, in the minors for so long, and how a lot of people might consider them quad A players, the Giants are giving them a chance. They're giving them more opportunities. And a big part of that is how Brundage is making sure that, everyone can be a utility man. Everybody played more than one position this season on his team, and that's pretty exciting. And then the other thing, Courtney Hawkins, who has been in the minors since 2012, he was called up for this game from Class A Advanced San Jose, and this is his third organization. And he said of all the three he's been on, this has the most analytics provided. He gets stats every single day. He gets them after every game, before every game. He gets new analytics every week. So he said that type of information has really helped him. They still have the old school approach of playing with your heart, and that's something that Brendan's talked about a lot, with how much heart this team had. But it's good that they can marry that heart and that work ethic with also these new analytics that are becoming so popular in baseball now.
Yeah, and just thinking of a recent example, you mentioned about guys who have been in the minors for a long time and the Giants allowing them to succeed, Mike Yastrzemski being one of them. There's a big hullabaloo during the AAA National Championship game that he was back in Boston, son of Red Sox great Carl Yastrzemski, a longtime Baltimore Orioles farmhand, didn't work out there, goes to the Giants, starts the year at AAA Sacramento, and now I think his home run at Fenway was his 20th of the year in the major leagues. The Giants are trying to find these guys. That's how you one way to do a rebuild is through prospects and that kind of stuff, but it's also to find hidden gems. And, time will tell. Courtney Hawkins hasn't been in that system for very long, and we'll see what happens to him in the offseason. But obviously they saw something in him that they liked, and they wanted to give him a chance here at AAA at the end of the year. So maybe something to follow this offseason. Before we let you go, Kelsey, we're going to lead this into an interview you did before the game. From the other side, from the Columbus Clippers side, you got to talk to number 16 Indians prospect Daniel Johnson. What are people about to hear about Johnson and his time with Columbus?
Johnson's had a pretty crazy last 12 months. He was traded from the Nationals, and then he got to play in the Futures games this year in Cleveland at his hopefully future home ballpark. And then he's been doing pretty well, especially in the playoffs. So he talked a lot about his plus arm, plus speed, his multiple nicknames. So it was a pretty fun interview.
All right, so we'll move to that right now. This is Kelsey speaking to Daniel Johnson before this year's AAA National Championship.
This is Kelsey Hennigan in Memphis at the AAA National Championship. I'm here with Daniel Johnson. Although I hear you go by DJ, what do you prefer?
It doesn't really matter. Yeah. Whatever you want. You can make one up if you want to.
I make it up? Okay. Well, I was going to say, a DJ, where's number 2? Are you a Derek Jeter fan?
No, I just pick number 2 as the smallest jersey.
Okay, that works too. Although I know on your Twitter you go by the Jet.
Right,
I assume it has to do with your plus speed?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a Sandlot connection or just...
No, I just made it my Instagram name one day and it kind of just went with it. Went with the flow, yeah. People started calling me that once I got to the Indians, so stuck with me.
Cool. So I know this is your first full season in the Indian system. How would you describe the year for you?
It's good. It wasn't a bad transition. I knew a few guys already here that I played with coming up with the Nationals, so coming here wasn't as bad. It was easy to talk to guys. Made it that much easier, really.
Yeah, who in particular helped you out?
I knew Mark Mathias, Tristan McKenzie. Who else did I know? Paulson, Oscar Mercado, I knew Greg. So it was just a couple of those guys that I already knew that kind of showed me the ropes when I got here.
Yeah, and I know you got to go to the Futures game in Cleveland. What was that experience like?
It was an unbelievable experience. It was, something you had to just all take in once you went to there. It was to be in Cleveland, the hometown where you want to be at is just lovely. You get all the support from the fans and everything like that. So it was fun.
Were you just like, I'm not leaving. This is my team now?
Yeah, I didn't want to leave, but unfortunately I had to. But it was really fun.
I bet. Did that type of experience prepare you for the postseason or this big game?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like motivation. You obviously want to be there. It's the big picture. So, coming back down to minor leagues, you want to obviously do everything you can to get up there.
Mm-hmm. And you're also known for your plus arm. When did you start to develop that?
I've always had a good arm, really. Just once I started to get a lot stronger, I started to get a lot better. So, yeah.
Yeah, how have you developed that? Is it just a strength thing?
Yeah, it's a strength thing. We're just in the weight rooms, we're getting stronger, and just arm developed too.
I know that your game has developed a lot over this past year, and once you got promoted to AAA, you did even better. How have you seen your game improve this year?
Really just taking care of the little things, whether it was routes in the outfield, just first jumps in the outfield, things like that, better base running, just the little things to help elevate the meat and potatoes, the hitting, fielding, things like that. So.
Yeah. And then after you got promoted, how long until you started to notice the difference with the balls, with being Major League balls?
I really didn't pay attention to it that much. I mean, the ball flew good for me in Akron, so when I came to Columbus, it was like the same thing, so I really didn't pay attention to it that much.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that using these balls helps you prepare for the majors that you're already used to them?
I mean, I guess. The ball is a ball, though. I mean, if you hit it, you hit it, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. Like I said, you were traded in the off season last year. How has that transition gone immediately and then since then?
It's been going good. It's the same kind of thing. Go out here and play. So that's about it.
What have you noticed about the Indian system as a whole?
Just more analytical, really. Everything else is the same. That's about it compared to the Nationals.
Now, this off-season you will be Rule 5 eligible. Is that something that players ever think about, or is it just like a...
Yeah, you think about it sometimes, but you can't control any of that, so you just got to go with the flow and see what happens.
I know you hit a big home run in the final game against Durham. Is there something special about hitting a postseason home run?
Yeah, just playing in the postseason in general is a special feeling. So, to hit that home run and put the team ahead, it was pretty good, pretty cool.
And then so far, what have been your biggest takeaways from the past season?
Really just trusting yourself, slowing the game down, not trying to be too much, being the player you can be, being yourself.
Yeah, is that something you've always had or you've recently worked on?
I've always had it, but, getting up here, you just play with guys who have a lot of experience, so, you talk to them and you just really focus on being yourself and everything like that.
Who in particular have you learned from?
Nobody in particular, just talking to everybody as a whole.
Well, we're continuing on kind of a postseason kick, which makes sense. We just finished the postseason. This week, in our next segment, as always, we have Ben Hill here with us. Ben, how are you doing?
Doing well, Sam. How are you?
I am good. I'm sitting to your left. It feels weird for me to say that. You are to my right, here in a fairly big conference room, one of the bigger ones we have here.
Yeah. We're surrounded by glass.
Yeah. This always feels like the aquarium. Like people could just stare in at us. We should do one of those, like a live podcast from just a conference room with other people watching us.
Yeah, we should. We should invite our biggest, the podcast's biggest fans to come and watch a live podcast through glass.
So it'd feel like one of those like surgeries that you see students have to do where they have all their teachers watching them from above. That's what that would be. But we can plan that out. We have a long off season ahead of us. But the reason I want to talk to you about the playoffs is you have this story that's coming out on Thursday. So by the time everybody hears this story, will already be up on MiLB.com. But it's about playoff droughts. And you did this story a couple of years ago, but now you've needed to update it with the likes of Visalia winning and some other teams. Like we mentioned the Brooklyn Cyclones, stuff like that. Teams that have broken droughts. So what does this updated look at the longest droughts in minor league baseball look like?
Yeah, well, in 2015, I wrote a story about the longest championship droughts in all of minor league baseball, doing a league by league approach, meaning what team in each league has gone the longest without winning a championship, and the caveat was you have to played at the same level of play and in the same market to qualify as a team. I'm not tracing franchises from one location to another. But if a team has been in the same market, the same level of play, which team in each league has not won a title in the longest period of time? I did this in 2015, and earlier this week when I was thinking about what to write about, I thought, I should really revisit that story. We just had the season end, obviously. AAA championship game was just yesterday as we're talking here on Wednesday, and I thought it'd be a kind of good, my first off-season article of the year. I thought it'd be good to kind of stay on this theme. Usually, as you know, I don't write too much about on-field stuff, but I do kind of like this element the most when I do write about on-field stuff, to tie it into a historical element and that kind of thing. So it goes league by league, starting AAA and then down to Class A. Full write-ups of each of the 10 full season leagues that have gone the longest. And, a lot has changed since the last time I wrote it. And I also, last time I wrote it, and I wish someone had stopped me, I wish someone had complained. But if a team had won a co-championship, I'd counted that as winning a title. And this time I did not do that. So that changed some things as well. As with the last time I wrote the story in 2015, the longest title drought in all of minor league baseball still belongs to Syracuse. Big, fresh new year in Syracuse, as they're now owned by the Mets. Obviously, a Mets affiliate. They're called the Mets, but that franchise going back to 1976 when they were a Yankees affiliate has not won a International League title. So that's the longest drought in all of minor league baseball. And the second longest drought was two teams. Well, entering the season, it was two teams going back to 1978. The Tennessee Smokies being one of those. They did win a co-championship in the Southern League in 2004, but they have not won outright since 1978 when they were known as the Knoxville Sox, a White Sox affiliate. And Harold Baines was on that team, biggest name on that team. But another team that hadn't won it all since 1978 was Visalia. They were the Oaks then, and they're the Rawhide now. But Visalia won this year, so they ended a 41-year, 42-season drought, whatever the case may be, by winning it all in 2019, the first time since 1978. If you really follow this type of thing, you know that Visalia's drought was tied into the curse of the alligator, which is because when they won in 1978 as the Oaks, Joe Charbonneau, who went on to become a cult Cleveland Indians icon, won the 1980 American League Rookie of the Year and didn't last too long after that. But Joe Charbonneau was on the 1978 Visalia Oaks, and he had a pet alligator named Chopper, who was kept in a tank in Joe Charbonneau's apartment. And Chopper, I think, trying to escape in the wake of this championship celebration, tried to escape, slammed his head within the cage or the tank in which he was being held, and died. And it's always been said that the reason Visalia did not win a championship since that time was because Chopper the alligator put a curse on the team, as well he should have. It sounds like he wasn't being kept in the best conditions, and it was a different era, but Joe Charbonneau probably shouldn't have had a pet alligator to begin with, but he was a free spirit. He was a wild man. So in the California League now, we had Visalia, who hadn't won since 1978. They finally won, and now the California League of the 10 full season leagues is the one with the shortest drought of any of the full season leagues, because it's Stockton now has the longest drought in the league, and they last won in 2008, so not that long ago when you're talking about championship droughts. I do write about the short season leagues in there, or at least list them, but the full write-ups are about the 10 full season minor leagues, league-by-league look. And again, Syracuse, 1976 is number one. Another one with a very long drought is Charleston, who were a charter member of the South Atlantic League when it was formed in 1980, and they've never won from 1980 to 2019, which is... I don't know if you want to say impressive, but they've in the Rainbows era, in the Royals era, in the River Dogs era, different affiliates, what have you. They've never won. And I'll throw one more thing out there, because I know some of our listeners might be kind of baseball nerds or minor league baseball nerds, and of course I use that term lovingly. And my article is about teams in each league with the longest championship droughts. Another way to look at this, and I just did not have the time to research, is what are the longest championship droughts for the affiliate of each major league club. So in AAA, what of the 30 organizations has the longest drought since their AAA affiliate won a title? That's another way to look at this. Would take a lot of work.
I was going to say that might be a tool shed for the offseason and figuring out which farm systems are best at winning. Right. And what does that actually mean? I mean, we talk about that all the time in terms of player development. Do you emphasize more individual stuff? Do you emphasize team success and trying to win each game and all that kind of stuff? So that would be an interesting look. If anybody has thoughts on this or has already done the research, tweet at us, at Ben's Biz, at Sam Dykstra, MiLB, whatever. That would be a fascinating look, or we'll file it away and maybe it's something we'll talk again about down the line. In terms of these individual teams, I mean, we've talked about the past. What do playoffs mean for the actual franchises, the Reading Fighting Phils, the Syracuse Mets, what have you? It just means a couple extra games at the end of the season. I know Visalia at one point was selling Curse of the Alligator shirts or something, or they were doing promos to. Is there any tie-in that these teams can do with this, or have you seen any other examples of that in the past?
Yeah, I think Visalia is the only one I've seen that really has sort of marketed their title drought through the Curse of the Alligator. The first time I visited Visalia, which I believe was in 2013, was the first time I learned about that, and they were selling, reverse the curse T-shirts, and they had I remember they like blow up alligators like on the concourse and at the ballpark, and they're the only team I can think of that really made it a marketable thing how long their drought has been. I mean, I understand it's, in minor league baseball, from a front office perspective, winning is definitely not everything. I don't think, the teams involved stay up at night not having won a championship or anything like that. It's a whole different dynamic. But I do think it would be something that could be kind of fun for Syracuse or Charleston, who has kind of that irreverent spirit, to come up with, make up their own curse that tries to explain why they did not win, or try to create some campaign based around breaking the spell, no matter what that might be, some positive mojo the fans can add. I think you can have fun with this the same way Visalia had fun with dead alligator cursing their team. I do think from a marketing perspective, instead of looking at this as a negative, look at this as like a fun way to drum up interest, and if the team is doing well, to get the fans that much more excited about winning, because it's not just winning for this year, it's winning for the first time in decades and decades, or maybe if you're Charleston, for the first time ever.
And we know a bunch of teams are going on retreats and having planning sessions very quickly here coming up. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, I feel like that's something that if your team is on here, take advantage of something, like find a way to work this into your promo schedule for next year and have some fun with it, especially the teams from maybe like 1990 and earlier. That's a long time, and minor league winning can seem like random variance at times, but to go that long, take advantage however you can, I guess. Circling back to a story we talked a little bit about last week in terms of the bump in minor league attendance, you dug a little bit deeper into finding out why it climbed above 41.5 million people this year coming through the gates. What were you able to find? I know a lot of it tied into new stadiums.
Yeah, well, the press release came out, and the word got out on Twitter, and minor league baseball attendance went up 2.6% this season, and an increase of over 1 million total to 41,504,077 as 2019's total over 176 teams in 15 leagues. That's the 14 affiliated minor leagues, as well as the unaffiliated Mexican League, which is a 16-team circuit and considered to be at the AAA level, even though it's not affiliated. So it was an overall gain of a little bit over 1 million fans. And I was looking at the numbers, and 800-some thousand of that gain can be attributed to just 5 affiliated minor league clubs, and those are, perhaps not surprisingly, the 3 teams with new ballparks this year, led by the Las Vegas Aviators, who drew over 300,000 more fans at their new Las Vegas ballpark than they did the previous season while playing as the 51s at Cashman Field. So, I mean, that's a massive gain.
They basically doubled their attendance.
And when the entire industry, 176 teams, went up by a little over 1 million, one team went up by over 300,000. So that's massive. Also, Amarillo. If you look at Amarillo, who were they in terms of trying to? It was a new stadium, obviously, and a new team. But you have to say, what did they gain from who they were the year before? Last year, they were the AA San Antonio Missions in the Texas League, and then the Missions, moved to Amarillo to become the Sod Poodles. While in a corresponding move, AAA Colorado Springs moved to San Antonio. So Amarillo drew 427,791. That's over 100,000 more, just about 100,000 more than they did when they were the AA Missions the year before. So that's a gain of 100,000. Fayetteville Woodpeckers, the other new ballpark, they drew 246,961, and the year before, they were the Bowie's Creek Astros, very much a stopgap entity playing on the college campus at Campbell University at Jim Perry Stadium. They only drew the Bowie's Creek Astros in 2018 drew a almost comically low 24,000 for the season. That was just a kind of a situation where the college was essentially hosting them and basically just threw open the gates and a couple hundred people would come in for each game. It wasn't really a money-making enterprise. But if you look at Fayetteville Woodpeckers at Segra Stadium drawing 246,961, that's over 200,000 more than the franchise had drawn in Bowie's Creek. So that's another huge gain.
That's a tenfold gain.
Yeah, that's a tenfold. Yeah, so when you're talking about who drew the most, what franchise drew the most percentage-wise increase, Bowie's Creek 24,068 to Fayetteville 246,961. Then you have not new ballparks, but the Colorado Springs Sky Sox relocated to San Antonio, and the Missions became a AAA team instead of a AA team. And the AAA San Antonio Missions drew more than the Sky Sox had the year before. I know this kind of gets confusing, but when you're looking at the same franchise, so that accounted for another 100-some thousand in gains there.
No, 74,000.
74,000. San Antonio Missions at the AAA level drew 337,484, and last year the Colorado Springs Sky Sox, who became the Missions, drew 262,657. So that's a gain of 74,000. And then finally, the Sky Sox obviously went to San Antonio, but meanwhile, the Helena Brewers became the Rocky Mountain Vibes and played in Colorado Springs. Rocky Mountain Vibes drew 137,294 in the Pioneer League, really good attendance for the Pioneer League, rookie advanced level. And Helena the year before, the franchise, the previous iteration of the franchise drew just 31,000. So that was a gain of 106,000, a little more than that. So these 5 teams that were in 3 new ballparks and then 2 others that relocated to a pre-existing ballpark but were in a different league were responsible for 800-some thousand of the overall gain, not just 5 teams. And so that goes a long way toward the gain. And also, we mentioned the Mexican League, and the Mexican League, I don't know their exact numbers, but they had the biggest league-wide gain year over year. So that was another big factor in the attendance, was the Mexican League going up 22% as a league. So when you look at the Mexican League gains, plus the gains by new ballparks and or relocating teams, that really tells a story right there. It's a big part of the story.
And we talked last week about new ballparks opening next year, but one thing I want to kind of tackle here real quick is one that was interesting to me that you noted in the story, and you talked about a little bit there, was going from San Antonio to Amarillo, and there being a gain of 100,000. Now, Amarillo is not as big a city as San Antonio. San Antonio is now a AAA city and a major sports market, as we know. The Spurs play there. So is this 427 mark, do you feel like that's sustainable for Amarillo? How much of this is a brand new market bringing a good team, a good league, and first year shock of like, hey, well, let's check out the new place. When it's no longer new, how sustainable is this?
I think you always see a honeymoon, not always, but usually see a honeymoon period with new ballparks where, there might be a dip the next season, once the novelty is worn off a little bit. But these are new ballparks still, and generated great fan enthusiasm still. So while there might be slight dips in these places, I don't see it. I personally would think it's probably going to be pretty negligible. You don't see the bottom drop out in the second year, but it definitely becomes a challenge for teams, to keep up the energy in year one into year two. But I think we've seen teams do that pretty well. The Hartford Yard Goats are doing just as well in year 3 at Dunkin' Donuts Park, as they did in year 1, for example. So I don't think we'll see big drop-offs in that regard. And in terms of new ballparks being, one of the biggest, if not the biggest generator for attendance growth, we do have, 4 new ballparks scheduled to open in 2020. And I think that could once again, set the whole industry up for another gain, just with the gains that you might see in, Fredericksburg as opposed to Potomac, Wichita as opposed to New Orleans, Kannapolis, staying in Kannapolis but in a new park there. I'm sure you'll see some big gains there, and then Mobile relocating to Madison, Alabama, and becoming the Rocket City Trash Pandas. I'll probably write a similar story next year about that kind of stuff. But I'd say those 4 franchises, either all going to new ballparks, 3 of them relocating, will almost certainly be responsible for at least 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 in overall gains next year.
All right, Ben. Well, I would say we'll see you next week, but we'll talk to you next week for sure. You're going to the Minor League Baseball Innovators Summit, which used to be called the Promo Seminar. Now it's called the Innovators Summit, which is a cool name, in El Paso, Texas. That's being held from the 23rd through the 26th at the El Paso Convention and Performing Arts Center. What are you looking forward to about this event this year? What are you kind of expecting to be some of the chatter to hear next week?
Yeah, well, this is, always been described as an idea-sharing event, and its timing is no coincidence. I mean, we just had the minor league season end, obviously. So, basically the first full week after the season definitively ends via the AAA championship game, we have the promo seminar, which is now the Innovator Summit. So it is this year, as always, a chance for people, while the season is still fresh on their minds and while they haven't yet started the planning for the next season, or they may have informally, but it's a chance to share ideas and pick up ideas and do things that you then go home after the summit and implement them for next season. So this is something I've attended almost every year for over a decade now. The rebranding, from the promo seminar to the Innovator Summit, they've changed some of the structure around a little bit, giving it a different look, but it's still fundamentally the same event. But the reason it's in El Paso in this year of rebranding the event is because the minor league baseball promo seminar, its roots go back to El Paso. There was an executive general manager of the El Paso Diablos, back 30, 35, almost 40 years ago now, Jim Paul, who started what became the promo seminar just by inviting friends in the industry to El Paso after the season, so they could have kind of, I think, what started off as a more informal bull session of like, hey man, the season just ended, let's talk about it, let's share ideas. And then that idea grew and grew until minor league baseball proper took it over and turned it into this very sleek, multifaceted, almost week-long event that we see today. So in bringing it back to El Paso here for the 2019 season in the rebranding year, it's kind of saying, well, El Paso is where this has started, and now El Paso will be where we look to the future as well with this rebranding. And I've said this many times, but I really like the city of El Paso. I've had the chance to visit twice, including earlier this season. I really like the energy there, and the El Paso Chihuahuas Southwest University Field is one of my favorite AAA parks. So personally, I'm glad it's in El Paso just because I think that's going to be a fun city to be in, and just looking forward to being back in the ballpark and just hanging out down there. And it'll be a busy time. I'm one of the presenters, at the summit. So, I'll be doing kind of really prepare for that, but, kind of highlights of my season travels, and I'll be doing some coverage from the event as well, and, involved in some, smaller group breakout sessions and who knows what else. So it'll be a good time down there, but very busy, and even talking about it right now is giving me a little anxiety because I'm just thinking about how, generally unprepared I am, but that's life, really. It's just the way it goes.
It's all right. It's still a week away. You still have a little bit of time, but I am excited to hear what those breakout sessions come up with, what kind of ideas sound like they worked in 2019, and what new ideas come up for 2020. So, we look forward to hearing back from you from El Paso next week, and we'll talk to you then, Ben.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll be talking from the Mountain Time Zone, which is the most overlooked and neglected time zone in the American landscape. So let's have some more respect in the continental U.S. Yes, thank you. But I'd just like to say that the Mountain Time Zone deserves more respect. And when you talk to me from the Mountain Time Zone next week, we'll have a chance to talk about the beauty of the Mountain Time Zone and what it's like to be either 2 hours ahead or 2 hours behind, or maybe just where you need to be.
It is 5:30 in the evening here. I got to get on a bus in 45 minutes to go broadcast a baseball game. It's like the middle of the day there. What are you doing for lunch?
I actually have an Italian sandwich. I did not
paying
plan
tribute.
Yeah, it might be offensive. I don't know. It might be an Italian American sandwich for all I know.
Okay.
It's got like salami and and ham on it. I don't know what makes it Italian other than it's just got various meats and cheeses. But yes, it's already in the fridge. It's not going to be
good.
nearly as good as whatever you're having for dinner. I'll say that much.
Yeah, it's been. There's like a ballpark chef here that prepares the meals for us. It's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. It's. I'm not going to complain, but I will be posting more pictures on social media about it to make you all jealous. Sorry.
Fair enough. But here in New York, they have the Feast of San Gennaro. That's been happening the last week or so. Do they have that in actual Italy proper?
I don't. I believe so. I don't think it's the same time of year.
Weird.
I don't know.
You would think that would be
You would think it would be right around the feast day.
Right.
But for some reason, I feel like I read somewhere that it's June here. Maybe that's a different feast. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making it all up.
It's Italy. They're feasting all the time. Yeah.
That's true. It is a constant feast. It is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week feast, and I am very much here for it. All right,
this is turning into our food podcast very quickly.
Oh, man. He's Sam. I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you next week.